Hi, I am Lise Colucci, and I am one of the life coaches at queenbeing.com, where we are dedicated to helping you discover, understand, and overcome narcissistic abuse in toxic relationships. Hello and welcome. Today I'm answering some questions from survivors, and I'm totally unprepared here. Okay, today I'm going to answer some questions that people asked, and in no order, and kind of they're a little bit random from one another. So hi, Nikki Ann. I'm just going to start, and I'm going to just sum up the question. I'm not going to read them as they were presented, just so that it's a little more general and can, help more people. They can kind of get into it. Okay. So basically, why is the narcissist doing everything like cooking, cleaning, taking the kid to school and stuff like that, and telling them to go out and do things? Why? Why would a narcissist do this? Hello, Life's Revival in Phoenix. A narcissist would do this. That sounds a lot like love bombing to me. And it sounds a lot like potentially there was either a massive devalue ahead of that, like preceding that, or like there was a threat that maybe you might leave. That's what it sounds like to me. Like they are afraid of losing their supply, which is you. So they're doing everything they can to prove what a wonderful and loving and fair person they are. It also could be to avoid having to own up to anything that they're doing. In other words, it's like, Leave It to Beaver and Eddie Haskell. It's like that. So they will do this to manipulate and to control. So if they can get you on their good side, then they've manipulated the situation to where you are a putty in their hands, and you will accept the negative when it comes, because sure enough, that devalue is going to come. And we know it because if you just keep watching, you'll see the same cycle over and over and over. So that's my thoughts on why they would do that. And it's like they'll even do that as a Hoover too. So you can end up apart after a discard or after you've left them, and they'll do the same thing. And it's to lure you right back in. Anyway, let's keep going with the next question. This one's a little Life's Revival saying, making nice to get the information out of you. That's another one. That's right. To see how you feel about a situation. Yeah, they're testing the waters. Hello, Blue. Excuse me. There's all kinds of reasons. Let's just say none of the reasons they would be doing that are out of the kindness of their heart or generosity. Oftentimes, they'll do things like throw a fabulous party or do something that's out of the norm, like putting themselves out for other people, like really stretching and doing something really accommodating a group of people or really accommodating a situation. And the second that thing is over, it's like, even though they're getting praise for how wonderful this event was or how wonderful this thing was, even though they're getting that, the second that situation is over, they will lash out at their primary supply or at the supply they're used to taking things out on. So it's a trap. Okay. This one's about dealing with a narcissistic father and setting boundaries. He never respects their boundaries. Right. And because they were raised in to have guilt and around honoring parents, and they're an overall empathic person, they feel like a bad daughter. And now the other thing that's said is that their other sibling doesn't talk to the parent, and their own mother wouldn't bat an eye if they never talked to this father again. So I can hear in this that this is clearly a person's own feelings of guilt and shame or whatever it is around their own feelings of how they think they should treat the parent. But we have to remember that with a narcissistic person and having been abused your whole life by this person, and that they are the ones that broke any bond that should be there, if that makes sense. That you can only be who you are, and you cannot live your life to accommodate a toxic person, no matter who they are. And that actually isn't being someone's child. That's being someone's slave. Honestly, being someone's child is going off at an adult age and living your own life and having kindness and respect back toward your parent. It's not an enmeshment where the parent doesn't have boundaries. And of course, people, that can happen in non-toxic situations too, but it's still a toxic environment, right? But with a narcissist, absolutely. If, let's say, after leaving, she feels like it should be easy to deal with this, but it's not. It's not easy because it's part of often, I mean, not talking to you. If I were talking to you, I would ask you all kinds of questions about your own feelings about this and what your beliefs are around how you perceive that should feeling, that feeling of guilt or whatever it is you're feeling, the feeling of obligation, what your belief is around that and how that looks in your whole life, right? So when we know what our beliefs are, then we can work on changing the belief. And as we're changing our belief, the boundaries go up. And those boundaries that go up will pretty much put in place a no contact because the person won't, the father, as you said, he'll push those boundaries. If you're going to push boundaries with someone who's actually putting them up for real, it means you don't talk to that person, right? So does that make sense? I mean, the way to deal with it is to look at your own beliefs about it and start working on healing yourself and becoming stronger and more clear about what you want for your life and step away from the situation enough to see it like that. Is that making any sense? I hope so. It's hard to talk about without actually talking to you, but tuned in for the exact thing I needed to hear. Sweet Pink, if there's anything about that I just said that it wasn't enough, can you just ask questions? Because like, as I said, I work better with like actually talking to people. Shannon, hello. My ex-narc came with me to a Thanksgiving dinner to show face. And then we got home, said, you owe me for that. Yes, that's exactly what we were talking about back then. This is what they do. I don't even want to know what they thought you owed them, but we'll just assume it's nothing good. Okay, let's move on to the next one. This is about handling the confusion. Let's see. Let me stop here real quick. Life Survival is saying a narc dad sets the boundaries, rules for the relationship. We, as the child at any age, must follow the rules. Exactly. And because it's not, do you see how that isn't a healthy adult parent-child relationship? That's basically ownership, right? I mean, yeah. So it's, I think, stepping back and seeing that you are your own person and finding out what your beliefs are around why that feels, well, we know why it feels normal, but why are we continuing to keep that cycle going? Well, it's not a choice. We understand that. We've been programmed, but we also have to, it's uncomfortable. Okay. It is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to say no and to break free from this stuff. It's not pleasant, but the other side is way better. So you got to push through the discomfort. And that's one, the question about the father, that's one that we talk about in the boundaries group with the coaching group. I'm really loving that group because people are from all different reasons that they're in there, and what they're coming to is, you know, their own deeper understanding of why they're not setting boundaries and how to set them. So if that's something you need and you're in that situation, it's available. And I think I linked it already in the description. Okay. The whole parenting thing. Can you talk about how the parent break you down and build you back up? I was forced to sit down while he picked me apart. After that, she would love bomb me with worth and tell me she's just making me a better person. Yeah. Okay. She had her PhD in counseling. Okay. Yes, of course she did, right? She knew what she was doing. That's just the classic love bomb devalue that you're talking about. I mean, it's the same as in any relationship. The difference is, okay, survivors are always about survival, of course. We're in a toxic environment and we try to survive. But when you're a child, the nature of all attachment is survival. We don't love just because we're, you know, we love. When we're children, we have also this element of needing to survive. It's natural in humans to not just lay there helpless and not want to survive, right? So a child knows that the parent needs to be okay. If the parent's not okay, then the child will feel not okay about themselves. And the reason is if they let the parent be the one who's wrong, okay, then how in the world will they survive till tomorrow? I mean, mom and dad have to be the ones that are okay to take care of us, all right? And so we learn to take it on ourselves. And the whole reason I'm saying that is that's part of how you break free. You realize that that patterning is a sick and toxic patterning that came from toxic people doing this to you as a child. And you have to realize you're no longer in survival mode. Okay, you're going to survive till tomorrow, whether they talk to you or not again. You really will. All right, you're not relying on them for your well-being and your very existence, like a child would be. And letting go of that piece, at least to me, gives a whole lot of room to figure out how to set boundaries. We may not realize we're doing it, but we think about like our inner child and stuff. That's really what we have to heal in order to get where we no longer let the effects of what happened to us be part of our everyday reality. I mean, the trauma's there and we have to live with these things, but we can use them for knowledge on how to improve ourselves. Does that make sense? Is that helpful, Sweet Pink? It is very unfortunate, Blue. It's very unfortunate. Yeah, it is. And it's what we have. Okay. So, I mean, I totally feel for everybody, but we have to move forward and realize that we can. And the fact that we've survived and the fact that you are here trying to talk about it and work your way through and learn about yourself means you are self-aware enough to make change. And you don't have to make change because the changes you need to make are in the programming from what was placed in you by people who have something wrong with them. Okay. And it's just, yeah. Okay. They need to have everything under their control, whether it's good or bad. This is Persinia. You're not even allowed to be a good person. Yep. Even according to them by your own choice. Do you see how that sets up a recipe for perfectionism in survivors? It's super common to not be able to function because of the perfectionist in us telling us we have to do it perfect or just don't do it at all, or whatever version you have of that for yourself. Most people have an element of that when they've had an abusive childhood from narcissists. At least, I don't know about most people, but most people I've talked to seem to have this feeling of need to be perfect. And that's another point. I mean, so the point is with all of this, with the parenting, is dealing directly with them is one thing. I mean, if you have to be around them, then you are, and you set boundaries, and it's almost clinical and cold. It's not a loving parent-child relationship. It's, if you have an aging elderly parent that you're the only person and you choose to be obliged to that situation, then it's business transactions. Do they have what they need? Are they taken care of? Are they fed? Are they clean? And that's it. There is no emotional bond with a narcissistic person. Sad as it is, we have to face the truth of the fact that they will never become what we need them to be. And what we do is we work on giving ourselves what we need in that situation, and then we take on what we choose to take on. Does that make sense? Everything that is good about us is because of how well they raised us. It's not because we're actually good, right? We know that's not true, but you see the delusion. What you're describing is the delusion, and it's just not true. It's just you're good because you are, because that's a simple fact. So it's very uncomfortable. Blue says it's so uncomfortable. Okay. Did I miss anything? Did I answer that at all, you guys? Or do you need more on that? Or did I go off in a direction that was my own head and not what you were actually asking? I tend to do that. Okay. Are we good? I'm going to keep going then. How do we handle the confusion? This person's saying that he told them things that he wants in a relationship. And then when they said what they wanted, that he would immediately put his foot down and back down. And turn to make things their fault, and they just want this replay to end, and they're constantly bombarded with memories of what happened. You're describing the confusion of gaslighting. I just talked about gaslighting a week ago or so that might be a good video to watch if after or later. You handle the confusion by looking at the facts. You listen to the emotions, and you're going to be lost in a total sea of confusion, because when we're trauma bonded, we're both emotionally invested and manipulated at the same time. Not a good place to make just choice, decision, or see clearly from. Does that make sense? So we look at the facts. You write down write down the things that were terrible. Write down the things that they did. Write them down all in one place with nothing else, just that. And that's like a list of fact checked. I can't say that. A list where you check your facts. And you look at it as the reality that you lived, regardless of how you felt or how you feel now. You look at the facts. The person is who they are. This cycle will repeat. You can even look at the facts of what led up to those things. This is a pattern, okay? Had a great weekend. Everything was great for a day and a half. Okay, wonderful. Everything's wonderful. You're the best. Nothing's wrong. Everything, they're super connected. They're super giving you all this emotional attention, and you feel like you've gotten closer than ever. You have that feeling of love. You're totally in love. Out of nowhere comes the other side. They pull back. They withdraw. Suddenly you're doing everything wrong. They pick a fight. You don't even know what the fight's about. And you know what I'm talking about. You know where I'm going with this, right? So then that spins, and then the whole thing's gone, and you're sitting there devastated thinking, where does this person I love go? What can I do to make it better? It's all my fault. I must fix this. And like you said, it's all my fault. Turns everything into being your fault. And then it just keeps repeating. So if you look at that, you can also look at the pattern of how it gets there. And you can see that the narcissistic person is an avoidant attached person. Every narcissist is avoidant attached, as far as I know. Not every avoidant attached person is a narcissist, but every narcissist, they don't attach. They don't bond because they can't. They don't have empathy. All right. So an avoidant person cannot have people in their emotional world. Not really. They'll push you away. And that's basically, they're setting up their own cycle to keep you at a distance and to keep manipulating the situation. So you actually won't leave them, so that you still have to give them the supply. But and it keeps going. It does. It'll just keep going. So what you see is what you do is you see it and you look it square in the eyes and don't think it isn't something that it isn't. It actually is that shark in the tank. It's not a goldfish. Okay. And you got to look at that and realize that it's dangerous to be near it. All right. Yes, no bond with them ever leaves us needing connection with someone, doesn't it? So we end up choosing the wrong person. Exactly. Shannon, hello. Yes, I cannot deny it wasn't right. I have never been treated like that. I fight between my heart and my head. You got to listen to your head. Your heart, you nurture. Your heart, you say, I know, baby, I know it hurts. You say, I know. This is awful, and we trusted the wrong person. It's okay. We're going to get through this. You tell your heart what your heart needs to hear. Your heart doesn't need to hear that it's okay if I just do this, it'll make it better. That's telling your heart a lie. So we tell our hearts the truth by acknowledging the pain we're in, and we let our logic in our head lead the way on this in order to get out and to stay safe and free from it. Okay. He told me he would never tell me. He told me that he would never tell me he loves you. Who does that? Right? Yeah. Well, you deserve more. Okay. So give it to yourself. You give yourself the love he couldn't give you, and it will come back to you. Okay. You will be at least fulfilled within your own heart. All right, on to this one. This is similar, feeling like this is somehow my fault, as he brought out the worst in me and I reacted. Okay, this is similar but different. This is more like when someone has a reactive abuse or has reactive abuse where they are lashing out back at the narcissist, never dealt with a person like this before and tried to stand their ground. Okay. I'm curious if this person was a person that knows how to stand their ground. A lot of times strong people, when they come in contact with a narcissist, they are the type that is not used to letting people push them around. A lot of us are. We're used to being so accommodating, we don't even know where we exist within the situation after a while. But sometimes when more stronger-willed people or people who are like I hear a lot from a lot of people before I met them, I was the strongest, most confident, independent woman I've ever been, or man I've ever been. I was at a really good place. I was never one to let people push me around. My experience in talking to people is they tend to be more prone to the people that have the reactive abuse, where they will go head to head with the narcissist instead of just, shrinking back and apologizing and fawning. They'll just get right in there and do the things back, or get into the arguments, or and they're doing things that go against their own moral code. They would never treat another person that way, but they will treat that narcissist that way because they're in reaction to the way they're being treated. And it can totally make you feel like it's your fault, like you're guilty, like you had some hand in it. Does that make sense? Let me read here real quick. He later said I was too strong. He told me, he said I was too strong-headed. Yeah. The backlash abuse that we give at the end is something that I can't shake. But at the same time, my anger came from no boundaries and forced control while I was an adult in the real world. And hello, Mel. Yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about. And I feel like that's our warrior inside that's trying to say, okay, if you're not going to get out, I'm going to take over. And I'm going to keep us safe, and I'm going to keep us moving forward, and I'm going to get us out of here. And our hearts and our cognitive dissonance and we get sucked back in again often. And so the cycle of that continues. But that's the piece that's like, it's more than treading water. It's actually trying to swim towards shore. So in a sense, feeling shame and guilt about it, excuse me. Oh, okay. Feeling shame and guilt about it is a little bit, I understand that it is what people feel, but if you think about it that way, it's a little bit misplaced, because we're feeling shame and guilt about a part of ourselves that knew what to do, that knew to get out. I mean, maybe it didn't go about it the right way or the way we would hope to go about it. It wasn't calm and rational. It was in reaction, but it's the part of us that's like, the little wildcat that comes out and fights its way out of a situation, fights its way out of that paper bag, so to speak. It's totally normal. And especially for people who do have or have had some sense of self, like a self-strength. Does that make sense? People who felt at one point in their life they were confident. Not everyone. Sometimes it comes out of nowhere and we go, whoa, where'd that come from? But I'm telling you, most people who have survived long-term abuse have a story of being reactive in a way that they are actually shocked by themselves, or they're totally embarrassed about it. So I don't know if that helps to hear that, but that's true. So I would say work on letting go of the whatever you're feeling that's got you where you can't shake it. And to both you and the person who wrote this other thing, work on letting go of that and seeing that that's just your warrior trying to, protect you, really. And maybe it's not the most graceful and and we also know it's not effective. So it's a little bit defeating, because it didn't actually solve anything, right? All it did is make you feel bad. But it was trying. Okay, let's see. The reactive my words today, I'm really tired in the speech department. Okay. Mel says roar, absolutely. And okay. That happens to all of us. So good to be aware of your reaction and why you reacted that way. Exactly. Knowing why, and that was actually you protecting yourself. Persinia, the reaction abuse is a desperate attempt to set a boundary when we feel we can't leave because of the trauma bonds. Exactly. And it's nothing to feel shame for. And I understand you still do. And I understand just my saying, don't feel bad is not going to help, but it's truly not something to feel shame for, even when we do things that are over the top. Not that we want to promote doing things that are over the top, but you know what I mean? Like it's usually we get into this pattern of just lashing back, right? So yeah. Okay. Shannon saying he left me in the end the same day I was telling my friend that I'm going to be kinder to him because this can work if I try harder. It could go on forever if you tried harder. Forever and ever repeating the same pattern. People who stay long-term end up being enablers. They end up being like a henchman, and they do the bidding of the narcissist. That's what I have seen in when I talk to people who have narcissist mother or father, and the other parent stays, and they're like, many 50 years into a marriage, and they're old now, and they say, I always thought my whatever the not narc parent was okay, but now I see they just enable. They just enabled, and they actually will like spy for the narcissist. They become a flying monkey. It's not a pretty place, and you don't want to be there. So yes, it could have stayed forever if you just tried harder. You know what I'm saying here? Yeah. And be kinder. Of course we can be perfect supply. It's never going to be enough, because what they want in a relationship and what we want are two separate things. Does that make sense? They want supply, and they want for themselves, and we want connection and partnership. So is it two separate things? It's like two different worlds. So okay, it helps a lot to know it's normal. Good. That's what I did. I was the enabler, and I made it easy for him. Hi, Jen. Right. And I think when we stay longer than, a certain amount of years, 5 years, maybe, I don't know, it starts to get that way. You can imagine what happens. And you can imagine what happens to people who learn to not speak up, to not react, and to just give in and make nice, so that the narcissist doesn't have their tantrum. And we learn to, anyway, it's a sad life. Hi, Shastina. Let's see. Anything else? Okay. All right, let's move on. I think there's one more here. Someone asked about trauma bonding. I just did a video on that, and we kind of have talked a bit about trauma bonding. I'll talk about it at the end here, though. That one. Someone wants to hear my story. I am writing it right now. I'll probably do it in written form, because it's difficult to talk about your own, without going off on a million tangents. When he's nagging at you, then child starts repeating mom, 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 and you're driving, and the anxiety, overwhelmed feeling comes on. I don't understand that question. Okay. Does anyone have a question? Sorry, I don't understand that last question, how I can talk about that. We'll talk about trauma bonding unless anyone has anything they want to talk about for the next 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll be gone. Oop. There goes the there. Okay. So what happens when I'm stuck with the supply they found after they die? What happens when I'm stuck with the supply they found? Oh, because it's a parent. After they die, my stepfather is living with me because he doesn't have the mental capacity to function in society by himself. Yeah, it's an obligation that's been placed in your lap, because you're now caretaking the supply of, that would have to be choices in your life. I would think finding other avenues for care for that person, finding other ways to get some freedom from being a sole caregiver to this person. I'm stuck between helping him and holding extreme resentment. Well, yeah, that makes total sense. I'd look into resources to help him get a little more self-sufficient. I don't know the degree of his mental illness. Was it a mental illness, mental capacity? I don't know the degree of what's going on with him, but I would look into resources. It's okay to choose you. Of course, it's okay to choose you. Jen says it's okay to choose you. Yes, it's okay to choose you. And in a situation like that, if you're stuck with the feeling of resentment, but also kind of obligation, it might be an incremental thing, and incrementally reducing the dependence they have on you and finding other avenues for support for them. Without knowing that. And it reminds me of when I was disowned because I didn't want to be held responsible for the family. Right. Right. Because you've got the responsibility thing over your head that you are obliged to help other people in spite of yourself, regardless of what you want and need for your life. Partially, we have to start living our lives, and we're not, I mean, like I said, I don't know what you mean by the not mentally capable. Was he completely dependent on the narcissist? Does he have any other family? What's the situation? Are there social services that can help them? Sweet Pink, I had to choose between the commitment I felt toward my mother and moving on with my life. Happily, I chose me. Exactly. Exactly. And, since he's not the toxic person, I can see where you would have the obligation feeling mixed with empathy. And like I said, an incremental thing might be good to get your freedom back. Yeah. You're not always choose you. Exactly. This is the life we live. We have to choose oneself in order to, we can't be of service, so to speak, or of use, you know what I mean, to others, if that's what we choose to do, if we're not taking care of ourselves. When we get broken down and we're underfed, so to speak, we are not at our best in order to help other people. So you have to choose you. And so finding ways to get out of that situation, or minimally getting a lot of help from other resources, if that's possible. Exactly. We have this one life to live, so always choose what's best for you. That's right. Exactly. All right, you guys, anything else today that you would like to talk about? I'll just start going on here about trauma bonds because someone asked about it. I just did a video and I sent it to them, so they have that. But let's see. What about trauma bonds? Do you ever have the trauma bonds like reappear? It can be an amazing thing that it can be like, it's like any exposure, any communication, or anything that super triggers can throw you right back into the feeling of being trauma bonded and completely forgetting what the abuse even was. That's really hard. And what do you guys do about that? They pop me right into it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes, that happens to me. Let's see. What can we do about that? What I do is I acknowledge what I'm feeling. I acknowledge, and I understand what it is. I know what it is. Of course I know what it is, right? I better. And acknowledge what I'm feeling, acknowledge what it is. And personally, I let myself feel it for a short time, and I either set timers or set a time limit to it, because I feel like maybe there's a layer of healing that needs to happen, and there's just something I need to feel in that moment. But I feel like if it goes on too long, then I can get pulled under by that feeling. So I will personally let myself feel it for, say, like a half an hour. And then I'll take a walk, or I'll do something to just break the cycle of just sitting there feeling bad and feeling drawn toward them. That's more what it is. It's not so much feeling bad. It's feeling the loss or whatever, the grief. And then I look at what I do have in my life, and I look at the things that are around me that I'm grateful for, and focus on that. And it gives me perspective. Also coming back to the list of what actually was wrong in that relationship, what actually was toxic about it. And those two things next to each other, like a gratitude list of what's actually in your life right now. And I'm not talking about like big things. I'm talking about, freedom to make choices, freedom to, not the things that you can't do when you're with someone who's controlling and toxic. And I look at it right next to a list of what gaslighting felt like, and what, the projections that happened, and like the long list of projections that happened. It's pretty clear, right? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Shannon. Talk about trauma. Yeah. Oh, that is an interesting point. You and the narcissist bonded over that? Is that what you're saying, Shannon? She's saying her brother took his own life. I'm sorry. And and the narcissist showed up. Talk about trauma. We bonded over that. Okay. They like to do that. They like to bond over tragic situations. It's like being a war buddy. If you think about it, how can you ever let go of someone that you went through that with? That's where you really separate what happened from who they are. And you realize they actually used your grief to manipulate you. And that is probably one of the dirtiest things they do, right? To use the thing that you're the most upset about to manipulate you, and rightfully upset about. I have to remember that it's not the end of the world, and then trying to remember what my actual world is. Exactly. Myself and my fiance and my cats. Exactly. I became mom's war buddy while dad was dying, and then became, how dare I leave them? Right. Yes. They like to bond over tragic things, over emotional, going through something. They know that it probably gives them some sense of bonding too, not bonding, and not attachment. What's the word I want to say? Familiarity, so that they have, and it also, I think they like the feeling of us trusting them. They like having that power of us being trusting of them. So yeah. Be careful who you turn to in grief and in darker times of your life. Be careful who you let in. That's the lesson for the future. For the past, we look at it and we say, okay, not doing that. That's not going there again. They are out. So it made him feel important and a savior. They love that, especially the covert. They love it. They love to be the savior, and they love that we trust them as such, and we look up to them like that. They love it. That's like such good supply. Total covert. Yeah, I can kind of tell. Keep going blurry. Sorry about that. My ex-narc came swooping into the rescue too. Yeah. Yes. They love it. They love it. That could be a whole video about that, couldn't it? In fact, it may be. All right. I'm going to head out and get on with the day here. You guys have anything else you want to talk about? I will stay a few more minutes. If not, you're crying, but you're feeling lighter. You know what? Crying is part of this. It's okay. I know it hurts, and I'm sorry that you're crying, but it's actually the release when you're crying from realization is totally different than crying from desperation. Can you feel that? Like when you're crying from talking about it and actually seeing the truth, it's a different feeling than when you're crying from desperation and clinging to what can't be. You need the poison out. Yes, you do, my friend. Take a walk if you can. That can help. Sometimes moving and thinking, doing something with movement, Shannon, sometimes can help. Whether it's walking, dancing, just moving around your house, whatever it is, it can help move it through your body and get it out of you. How do you recover from a long breakup? Hi, Will. What's a long breakup? Do you mean like one that is prolonged and won't end and is just like, we're together, we're not together, we're kind of together, are we together? What's going on? Like that kind of thing? Or do you mean one where you break up and then, get hoovered and break up and get hoovered? Well, I guess that's what it is. But you're coaching kids soccer. There you go. Let that fresh air in and the sunshine, if you have it, or the rain and clouds, whatever you got, and see if you can just let yourself feel what you need to feel, Shannon, and give yourself some love. Okay. And let's see. Is that what you meant? Is that what you meant? Well, let's talk about a breakup real quick. How you recover. Understand what you can. If you're talking about a breakup with a narcissist, it doesn't matter if it's slow, fast, prolonged, you are probably trauma bonded. So understand everything you can about trauma bonds. I have some videos. Angie obviously has videos to watch on that might help you. You understand that this it takes time to get over this. This isn't a fast move on kind of situation. This is a process of healing, and accepting where you are in the moment can help, and not like wishing it away really fast, because there's a lot we need to see after being with a narcissistic person. We need to understand what happened to us and the nature of a narcissistic relationship. I mean, when you love someone for years and they suddenly break up, okay. Well, the same thing applies. You see it if were they a narcissistic person? Well, I'm assuming they were. You wouldn't be here, right? Or at least you have the belief they probably are. Yes, understanding trauma bonds, understanding that when you feel that grief combined with the longing to talk to the person who gave you the pain, that is a trauma bonded situation, and that you are reacting to the chemicals in your body that are asking for release. When we're seeking I don't know how it's affecting you. I should ask you, how's it affecting you? Like, what do you feel you need what do you feel you need help with in the recovery? Because there's all kinds of bits to it, right? 5 miles a day walk helps. Yes, it does. It does. It's like the perfect amount too, isn't it? Yeah. So, Will, what's going on with what are you feeling, and what's like the major part you're having? Because I've got like just a few minutes here. So, what is the major part of what you're feeling that you feel like you need some guidance with? And I'll just keep talking while you type, if you type something. But understanding that you are that no contact is the best way. No contact. Every time you have contact to a toxic person, it triggers these trauma bonds. It triggers. So when we're trauma bonded, we are full of anxiety, right? We're full of cortisol and adrenaline. That is the nature of all breakups, really. But because of the cycle of how they did it within the relationship, we are trained to turn to them for relief from those feelings. Does that make sense? Like, we're trained in a healthy relationship, you might fight and stuff, and then everyone kind of resolves things like together, but not in this way of like absolute, silent treatment and then resolution. Like, not in this way where you're fawning for the other person to please, be okay, to, you're, what I'm talking about? Like, because of that cycle, it just repeats when we're trauma bonded. So we're actually looking to them to make it better. And, okay, I'm going to have to, just a second, you guys. I'm sorry. James, are you in here? Okay, there we go. Got it myself. Sorry. All right. So back to what's important. Sorry, totally distracted me. All right. So you've been trained to seek. I had one. I thought they were here, but they aren't. But I got it right. It's all good. We just skip my little. Was that okay? We're trained to seek the relief of the pain that we're feeling from the toxic person through the way that they love bomb and devalue. I feel like I'm prisoned, especially in social activities. I feel like I have no purpose while everybody has. So if we're looking for the purpose and we're looking for feeling better from a toxic person, it's never going to happen. Well, it might happen, but then the cycle will repeat, right? And if they're in a discard, then they haven't hoovered yet. Then what you're doing is you're sitting there waiting for the hoover, most likely. You're waiting for it to get better, for them to fix it, for them to come back. Or you are, I don't know, or you are glad they're gone because it was toxic, but you don't know how to get over it. And because you still have the feelings of wanting them back. That's what most people feel. I'm not sure if that's what you're feeling, but your purpose comes, Will, from finding your purpose. Your purpose comes from self-care and from the realizations of what is good about you through your own experience in life, not through other people giving you that. Does that make sense? And the narcissist trains us to look to them to find our worth in whether or not they approve of what we're doing. So we have to break that cycle and start finding our own worth in the things we're doing. So a lot of self-care and a lot of paying attention to what you're feeling and restating it. I mean, if you say I have no purpose, you tell yourself I absolutely have purpose. Even if it's just the words right now, you don't let that talk take over, because what that is it's more of the same talk that you heard in a toxic relationship, just doing it to yourself instead. Does that make sense? Will, I felt that complete and total emptiness at first, like nothing was enjoyable, and I was never going to get over it. It gets better. It does get better. It does get better. In the meantime, you hold tight and you really take care of yourself and try to focus on, get foods you like, do things for yourself. Look up, I don't know how long it's been, but, do new things that are new for you. Change your house around. If they lived with you, excuse me, if they lived in the house with you, change it around so it's all yours and it doesn't look the way that it looked when they lived there. Things to create your own purpose, things to create your own world, right? That isn't one that they were in. Is that making sense? It's hard to answer that question without a lot of back and forth. I picture breathing out the bad black energy and bringing in white. Affirmation every day. I believed it once and it was better than ever. I know I will believe it again. That's beautiful. And that's exactly what we do. We have to retrain ourselves to focus on the positive in life. And it's really hard when it feels bleak. And know that you're not alone, Will, that there's lots of people going through that and lots of us who have gone through that. So, and it does get better. Okay. I need to head out. Okay. Unless there's anything urgent here, I need to go, and I will be back on Thursday. I don't know what time. These are mystery times lately, but I'm making it. Thank you, Shannon. Okay. You guys take care, and thank you for joining me. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this. And as always, I wish you well on your healing journey, and I will talk to you next time. Goodbye. I'm gonna move this. Got to see what's going on. Here we go. Bye.